Before you watch my review for Elemental, I just want to say that there's no like major sort of spoilers in this, or at least what I deem to be like the more important things for this film. Little details I'll explain here, but like they're the kind of details that you most likely have seen from just like the trailer itself. Just wanted to mention that before the video starts. But anyways, hope you enjoy. What's up, people? So this is going to be my official review for Pixar's latest film, Elemental. So just like my unofficial Indiana Jones review, I'm going to give you the breakdown of this. So I'm first going to be my initial thoughts. Then from there, I'm going to go into broken into the positive and negative category. So for positive, it's going to be based on the visuals, the animations, integration, and the soundtrack. For the negatives, it's going to be more specifically on the trailer itself, the story, and the comedy. Then I'll just end it with my ending thoughts. So when it comes to my initial thoughts, even though I haven't really been interested with the previous Pixar films, I'll admit this one did definitely catch my interest, especially when looking at the trailer, a whole city filled with elements and then, getting along together. It seemed interesting in that regard. I did have concerns, but I'll elaborate more on the trailer later. Overall, I have really never felt more mixed about a Pixar film, since there are good positives, but there are also some expected negatives that ultimately really it hinders the film from being great. So when it comes to the actual visuals, I'm going to be focusing on the city slash the characters. Right off the bat, the actual visual of the city and characters, beautiful to look at. The vibrant colors of the actual buildings really makes this film like pop in that regard. In the case of the characters, I can really appreciate how they were able to make them the actual elements themselves, especially reading on the animators really understanding on how each element flows in their own remark. Examples being from the two main characters, Amber and Wade. Part of a quote from director-animator Alison Rutland saying on Amber reading, "Fire was loose, lighter, and more gaseous, which gave Amber the freedom to change scale and volumes more easily." And the same theme from another directing animator being Gwen and Douglas about Wade reading, "Water is a much heavier force that retains its volumes en masse." Really, I would say that this is the film's strongest suit. And at least to me, all of these focuses on the elements design, it really makes these characters clear and real recognizable, even though it's kind of hard to forget that they're elements. And it kind of gives me other examples of like other Pixar characters that are like just blatant and recognizable, like being Toy Story and Inside Out. So now I want to talk about the animation. Same thing to be said here. The animation, the elements, they were fun at times when showcased throughout the film. Seeing Amber act like the fire from underneath a hot air balloon, making it rise, with Wade doing a literal wave when at the Cyclone Stadium. It adds some depth to the elements and the abilities that they're able to do. One thing I will say is that I feel like they should have done at least more of these, like visuals and like the animations of these elements when it comes to wind and earth, since they didn't really do much of any service for them, and they kind of just used them more for like whether it's maybe something for like a comedic part or something that has to do with the story. Now I want to touch on the immigration. So for that aspect, I was able to essentially relate to Amber's family immigrating to Element City and being able to start a life and provide for their daughter. Last thing I want to touch on is the soundtrack. Generally, the certain songs were very calm to listen to, almost having a harmonic connection with the elements, especially the one with Fire, where they have like this tradition. Amber's dad was, about to be sent out with his wife to Element City, and then he did this where he kind of went on the ground and sort of, bowed down to his father as a show of, respect. And especially with the music in the background, that was nice. That was very nice. And even the song, Steal the Show, that went along with the actual romance. I'll give it credit for that. Good stuff, Thomas Newman and Lauv. I'm pronouncing that right? Good stuff on that. And now we move on to the negatives, starting with the trailer itself. So this is where things started to, make me raise some concerns for this film. As I was watching the trailer and I finished it, it just felt generic and uninspiring. Not only that, I barely really saw any marketing for this film whatsoever. I mean, despite the fact the trailer, I don't know if it was the teaser or the official trailer, that shit got over, at least at the time, like 34 million views, which is a thing that essentially hurt this film for sure. Ultimately, there wasn't much from the trailer that like make me want to go back to like rewatch a part or giving me really a reason to be all that excited for it. Especially when you focus on the specific part of the trailer that goes along with the actual plot of the film, in that it falls into the territory of not being able to do what I want to do with my life kind of theme.
Why does anyone get to tell you what you can do in your life?
Which really isn't all that new, and it's quite repetitive, especially since upon like videos I saw about like previous Pixar films, they follow that same exact concepts. I didn't think that would somehow be possible. And you're telling me no one like decided to like, hey, this is kind of following the same thing as the other films. Can we do something different? Now we move on to the actual story. So a lot of the story is around the actual romance between Amber and Wade. And to me, I feel like they missed out on showcasing a nice visual on the whole immigration aspect that was clear from the beginning of the film. Not to say the romance was bad or anything. It's just ultimately it was a cliche rom-com for the majority of this film. And I mean, if you like that, then you'll probably enjoy this film. But it's just not for me, and I feel like they could have done something more, I guess, on the immigration part. They also decided to include the aspect of race allegory, since, as mentioned by Amber's parents,
elements cannot mix.
But really, it doesn't make sense to me. You literally have Element City filled with the majority of the elements living together, and they're seeming to just get along just fine. It feels more like a misplacement than anything. That's why I would say that they should not have only like cut out the race allegory, but also cut back on the actual romance. And as I mentioned, they should have, just actually focused more on the immigration aspect. And now here are some suggestions that I would say could have personally made the film maybe at least, be a little bit more interesting. But here's something. So hear me out. Ultimately, they could have still done, Amber wanting to fill her father's place at the shop, but is then maybe offered with a better job opportunity. And who knows, adding an actual villain could have made this a little bit more interesting. It could be in the one that offers the job opportunity to Amber, and then having an evil background, maybe betraying her. Not only that, this could be a great opportunity for showcasing, in what the elements, or at least showcasing more of what the elements can do with their abilities in a more fun manner. And also express, more personalities and especially and things like that. Or, just something I feel like along those lines of like ideas, I feel like could have made the film more, interesting in that regard. So lastly, I'm going to be talking about the comedy. It was alright, I've had some decent chuckles here and there, but some were definitely just, it's a clear just indicator that you would facepalm for this. And some jokes were in the form of puns. An example of that would be when Wade mentioned how hot Amber is.
You're so hot.
Excuse me?
No, I mean...
Also, there was a sexual / flirty type jokes as well. So there was something, at least for the adults, that pretty much only got that joke, and with the kids, yeah, that flew right over them. One of them being with two earth elements pruning.
Nothing weird going on here.
Just a little pruning.
Another being with Gail Cumulus being flirty with Fern Grouchwood.
Oh, sorry. Fern, you're a Windbreakers fan?
Dude.
Toot.
The only kind of jokes that I had at least a remote chuckle with was from Wade and his family, and how they cry a lot, and especially over such sentences, and then becoming, overly emotional. It eventually kind of got a bit annoying. I can look past it, since again, it was really the only kind of comedy on the more funnier side.
Of a lonely man. Oh,
So, ending thoughts. As I mentioned, this is the most mixed I've ever felt, from being able to come up with recognizable characters and showcasing their abilities of the elements that they are, to unfortunately having a repetitive plot making the story not so interesting. And I don't consider this film to be like a horrible one by any means, because I definitely did have enjoyments with this, especially with certain scenes being the two main characters and Amber with her father. So since this is my first official movie review, I'm going to be giving ratings towards the end of these. So if I have to give a rating for this film, I would give it at most a 6 out of 10. That's been my review for Elemental, and if I feel like I've missed any specific points in this film that I didn't talk about in this video, if you want, leave it down below in the comments. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and later.